What started as a normal luxury flight turned into one of the most shocking scandals in aviation history when a flight attendant slapped a black woman in first class, completely unaware that she was the Federal Aviation Administration's administrator herself. This jaw-dropping story will leave you breathless with its twists, turns, and poetic justice. Don't forget to subscribe now for more unbelievable stories that the world can't stop talking about. It was supposed to be a smooth, uneventful flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., the kind where passengers sip champagne in first class and the hum of the engines lulls them into peaceful detachment from the chaos of the world below. But as fate would have it, one arrogant flight attendant's actions would spark a firestorm of controversy, ignite conversations on race, privilege, and professionalism, and change the course of her own career forever. For seated in 2A that morning was Dr. Amelia Johnson, a poised, confident black woman whose authority and elegance radiated from her calm demeanor. But what no one on that plane knew, except perhaps her executive assistant seated discreetly in coach, was that Amelia was not just another business traveler in designer clothes. She was the administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, the highest-ranking regulator in U.S. aviation, a woman whose signature could ground fleets, revoke licenses, and rewrite the future of flight. And as she settled into her seat, enjoying the plush leather and flipping open a folder of policy documents she intended to review, the drama began brewing in the aisle when Karen, a mid-40s flight attendant with a reputation for sharpness and superiority, strode in with clipped steps, eyes scanning the cabin as though it belonged to her personally, her gaze lingering on Amelia with a flicker of irritation that was small at first but grew with every passing second. And though Amelia simply smiled politely, the exchange ignited something toxic inside Karen who, perhaps fueled by assumptions, biases, or simply the stress of a long shift, began treating Amelia as though she did not belong in that space, making subtle comments about overbooked upgrades, and asking repeatedly to see her boarding pass again, despite Amelia already presenting it twice, an indignity that made nearby passengers shift uncomfortably, whispering among themselves but unwilling to intervene, until the tension escalated when Amelia asked quietly for a glass of water before takeoff. A request met not with service but with disdain as Karen snapped, "First-class services for first-class passengers, ma'am," words that carried venomous implication. And though Amelia held her composure, her voice calm as she replied, "I am a first-class passenger," Karen rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath about people always thinking they deserve special treatment, which might have ended as an awkward but forgettable incident had Karen not returned minutes later during boarding chaos, leaned over Amelia with fake sweetness, and then, in front of stunned onlookers, slapped the folder from her hands and brushed it against her shoulder in a gesture that crossed the line from rudeness to outright assault, the sharp smack reverberating in the quiet of the cabin as gasps filled the air. Phones began recording, and Amelia, dignified even in that humiliating moment, simply stared at the woman who had dared to lay hands on her, not with rage but with the chilling steadiness of someone who knows exactly the power they hold. For Amelia did not rise or shout. She did not retaliate physically. Instead she asked one question in a voice so measured it silenced the whispers instantly. "Do you know who I am?" And Karen, scoffing with the confidence of ignorance, replied, "Another entitled passenger," to which Amelia leaned back, eyes unblinking, and said, "I am the administrator of the FAA," words that fell like a thunderclap, freezing the air, making fellow passengers sit straighter, and causing Karen's smirk to falter for the first time, though she tried to laugh it off, assuming it was a bluff. Yet within moments the captain himself emerged from the cockpit, alerted by the commotion, and when Amelia repeated her identity, producing her federal credentials from her briefcase, his face drained of color, for he knew instantly the gravity of what had just unfolded. This was not a simple case of passenger-crew conflict but an act of disrespect and aggression toward the very head of the agency that governed his license, his aircraft, his entire livelihood. And as murmurs spread through the cabin like wildfire, passengers began speaking out, some telling Karen she had crossed the line, others recalling the dismissive way she had treated them too, and all the while Amelia remained steady, taking notes, recording times, documenting with the precision of someone who knew this would become a case study in professionalism and prejudice. But the twists did not stop there, for once the plane landed in D.C., Amelia disembarked calmly while Karen was escorted off separately, believing perhaps that a private apology would smooth things over. Yet within 48 hours the incident hit the media like a lightning bolt. Video clips recorded by passengers going viral across platforms, Hashtags trending. News anchors replaying the slap in slow motion. Analysts dissecting the deeper issues of race, gender, and authority in aviation. And as the nation debated, Amelia convened an emergency meeting at FAA headquarters where she announced a sweeping review of airline staff training, emphasizing accountability, diversity, and passenger respect, a move that not only rattled the airline involved but sent shockwaves across the industry, for never before had a single act of misconduct in a cabin spiraled so directly into federal scrutiny. And meanwhile Karen's world unraveled, suspended indefinitely, investigated not only by her employer but scrutinized by the public who dug into her history, finding past complaints buried in HR files, anecdotes of arrogance that now resurfaced with haunting clarity, painting her not as a stressed worker who made a mistake but as a symbol of unchecked bias in customer service. Yet the most surprising twist came when Amelia, weeks later, invited Karen to a closed-door meeting, not for vengeance but for dialogue, for Amelia believed in transformation as much as punishment, and in that tense encounter, Karen broke down, confessing years of bitterness, feelings of being undervalued by her airline, resentment she had misdirected onto passengers she perceived as outsiders, and though Amelia did not excuse her actions, she offered her a chance to participate in a new FAA-led initiative on crew sensitivity and professionalism, a move both criticized and praised, with some calling Amelia too forgiving while others lauded her leadership for turning humiliation into reform. And as months passed, the story remained a touchstone in public memory, the slap that became a spark, the arrogance that birthed accountability, the day an FAA administrator in disguise reminded the industry who truly holds the skies. And though Karen faded from headlines, Amelia's legacy grew, not just as a regulator but as a leader who demanded respect not for herself alone but for every passenger who ever felt unseen, every worker who ever felt voiceless, every moment when justice seemed out of reach, proving that sometimes the most ordinary flights become the most extraordinary journeys, and sometimes the quietest passenger in the room carries the loudest authority, leaving us to wonder how many other Karens and Amelias sit across from one another every day, their fates colliding in ways that could change the rules forever, a reminder that no act, no matter how small, is without consequence, and no person, no matter how underestimated, is without power.